Hello and welcome to TaAF Talks, where we share what we're learning to help you make a positive difference. My name is Jamie Waugh, the Programme Manager for Together an Active Future. And alongside me, you guys give up or you're thirsty for more, it's Ken, the Wet Bandit Masser. How you doing, Ken?
I'm very well, and I'm looking forward to this podcast.
Okay, name that movie?
Don't know.
Really?
No.
Oh mate, we've just had Christmas.
Can we do a recap of all of the whole season's movie quotes and references?
I think I've only done 2 or 3 and you failed to get all of them. That was Home Alone, obviously.
Home Alone.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay, right, okay. So, Ken, season 2 for us has really been about getting across some of the things that are fundamental in the TaAF approach and the things that underpin what we're doing.
Yep.
And today I think we're going to wrap up that journey for something that's maybe always been there in the background for us, maybe a bit unspoken, but has recently started to turn into something much more that we're excited about, that has a name and a tool and an ethos.
Yep.
And so that's what we're going to get into today. So why don't you tell the listeners what today is all about?
So today is all about our strengths-based approach to leadership and development using the Clifton Strengths assessment tool from Gallup. And do you want me to carry on?
Yes.
Do you want the full spiel?
We'll get the full spiel, please, mate.
So, we have been thinking for a while now about behaviours being central to our model for change, and we've discussed that in previous episodes. Check back probably for the last 3 or 4 episodes all about our model for change. And one of the key things that's really important for us is this idea of building on what's strong, being positive, moving forwards, but working with the assets and the people that are already in the place and taking what's brilliant and growing it and accelerating it. And we discovered some time ago that there's a development tool by this company called Gallup called Clifton Strengths, which focuses on what people are really good at, on their strengths, on their talents, and then has loads of resources and support to help people to understand what those talents and strengths are and grow them. And so that felt like it fitted in with those 2 kind of key principles for us, building on what's strong, and the behaviours and the people are at the middle and at the centre of our change work within places. And so we're running with that, and 4 of us from the Pennine LDP went to Gallup in London and did a training course to become certified strengths coaches. So we understood more about what the tool did, what it meant, how the language works, and ways in which you can use some of that information to help people to really thrive and flourish.
So, and we'll talk in a little bit around maybe our own personal experiences, which will include that coaching bit. And so what we're going to do in today's podcast, we'll explain maybe just a little bit more around the actual Clifton Strengths tool, what it is, what it isn't. Like I say, maybe even some of the numbers behind it of why this feels like something that's real and genuine and got an awful lot behind it. And then we'll share our own personal experiences of using it, and how we start to introduce that to our team and how that's all feeling. And just generally where we then, maybe after we have a little break, maybe then get into where we're hoping to take it. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, so knowing that you're the man to know and understand all of the background and the science and the data behind all of this, setting you up nicely here, do you want to just give us a little bit of a feel for what's behind the kind of Clifton Strengths stuff?
Yeah, so Clifton Strengths was born from a chap who sort of started positive psychology, a chap called Don Clifton in America, and he developed a test which it asks you 177 paired statements, and you have to kind of pick which one you prefer. So I haven't really got a good example at the top of my head now, but it might ask you, do you prefer to stay at home and read a book or to be out at a party with your friends? And you have to rank on which one you prefer, and the strength of your preference for one of those 2 things. And sometimes the 2 things are connected and sometimes they're different. And what this assessment tool then does is it produces a list of your natural talents, and Gallup would say a list of your talents or your talent DNA that explain the ways you most naturally think, feel and behave. So it's really about who you are, what gives you energy, what things come naturally to you, the things that you enjoy doing. And
just to emphasise that point, I think then on that one is, this is around the stuff that you were innately good at, the stuff that you were naturally connected to and either energised by, or even if you try to not, you just naturally do that, as opposed to something you've got good skills in, which is not the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, this is an innate talents, really focused around behaviour and with a slant on leadership as well, and the way in which you interact with people. But it plays equally as well across personal and work life as well. One of the things that we really liked about the Gallup tool is it's been done over 30 million times now, so 30 million individuals across the world have taken the test, and that's constantly adding to their data and allowing them to refine the tool and the algorithms and everything else. And it's got one of the highest levels of resilience to the test and retest. So the more times if you take it multiple times, which is not recommended, but if you do, the outcomes are similar.
Yeah.
So not always identical, but compared to many personality assessment type tools, much more rigorous sort of replication of the similar results.
Less likely to be a reflection of the bad week you've had, or the fact that you were buzzing at the time of taking that, or drunk, or whatever.
Yes, all of those things. Mood is often a predictor when you do personality tests, but less so with Clifton Strengths. So there's a lot behind it. And they also, Gallup also do a staff engagement and workforce engagement survey called the Q12, which is taken by tens of millions of people every year. And that data also links back and feeds into the Clifton Strengths tool, and particularly how those strengths might be able to influence our understanding of leadership within the workplace.
Cool. So, recap on that. It's robust. It's about as strong as anything that we've seen that's out there from an evaluation point of view, just the size of the amount of people who have taken it to be tested. It's been around for a long time and evolved over that period of time, and which I'm going to come on to this in a little bit. And actually, once you've done it, you really start to create a connection with it, because it's really scarily accurate by highlighting stuff that you either knew to be true or actually you realise is true when you see it. And we'll come on to that in a second.
One other thing to say, I think that's that we've really liked about it is it's tailored. So there's 34 different strengths that can be presented in any order.
Yeah.
And Gallup tell us that there's 34 million different combinations of top 5 in a specific order, whereas lots of other personality tests will put you into 4 or 5 categories. So you're either social or you're a learner, So what we like about it is it's very tailored to the individual, which gives it a degree of complexity. So it's not as simple as some of the other tools in terms of ease of understanding. So there's some work required to kind of get to grips with it. But as you do get to grips with it, it really resonates with every individual, and people don't particularly feel pigeonholed with it, which can happen with some of the others.
And we'll come on to the personal and team experience thing in a second, but maybe we just emphasise the point of why we thought this would be a good idea for TaAF, and actually why we think it's going to be a good idea for who we're connecting with going forwards and where we're trying to take this. So I think one of the things that you've already alluded to is the fact that this focuses on the strength of the people who are here, as opposed to identifying the weaknesses that you might have in a team or a place. And I think you've talked about, and you've raised this a lot in the previous podcast. The idea of, in an organisation, what we're used to is a personal development review or in a 6-month assessment or whatever, where they're almost always set up to be, okay, so we'll talk quickly about the stuff you've done that's been good, great. Now let's talk about, for the next 95% of the time, where you're rubbish and why you need to work on that. And this is almost, it's not the opposite, but what this is saying is, let's talk about the stuff that you're absolutely amazing at, that you bring to this team that nobody else can in the way that you do. And let's talk about how we could create a space for you to develop that further, and what would that look like if you took it to 150%? How effective could you be then? And let's talk about that there's some things that you're less strong at, that aren't as natural to you. And you might want to put a system in place for that, but we won't spend all our time on you developing that to be better. Yeah,
and it's one of those where it's, trying to teach a fish to climb a tree, right? It's not particularly good use of time. Then they might be able to do it eventually, but never going to be very good at it. Usain Bolt, as an example, spent all of his time. He was fast at running, and he spent a lot of time becoming faster. He didn't think, I'm fast at running, and so I'll try swimming.
Yeah. But I'm not very good at that long stick thing where you've got to go over a bar. I'll just spend ages on that, shall I?
Yeah. And be mediocre at it.
But because it sounds like common sense, but you don't want to work in a team or a system where everyone's kind of roughly the same. You're a little bit better. No, you want people, you stand out, you're amazing at this.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter that the other stuff isn't your strength, because this person over here, they're amazing at that thing that you're not so great at. That's what you want. People who are really standing out for the really high quality and strengths and talents they've got.
And allowing people to do things in their way.
Yeah.
So quite often we pigeonhole people, or we develop a process that means everyone has to do a particular piece, a type of work, let's say reporting to a board. We've got to write it down, and we've got to write it in this style, in this template, in this format. Well, some people are going to be much better at articulating it verbally or in other different ways that would be different, or even just writing a report in a different style. But we try to, from our education system right through our professional systems, we try to streamline and standardise things, which means we're not playing to everyone's strengths, we're only playing to some people's strengths, and then other people perhaps look less effective or less capable, but they could do the same thing, i.e. reporting to the board, really effectively, but they might just need to use different strengths to do it.
Yeah, Jamie, you're not very good at writing that board report for the local authority kind of board. Yeah, never will be either, because I don't want to write it in your style in the way that would do. So one of the gaps was not enough focus on the stuff that people are innately strong at and developing that. And potentially another one is, it's only when you start to get a language that you can put to strength that it becomes much easier to talk about it and bring it out, it sounds like a weird thing to say. I'm going to talk about my personal experience of this felt like a cult to me for the first 2 days when we were in London. Yeah. But actually, when you do get a language, it's really nice to be able to bring that out, and I can tell you what Ken's great at, but I can do it with almost like a label that makes it easy for people to grasp and then see in you and be able to bring it out. Yeah. And so there was almost like a missing language of being able to kind of talk about this stuff as well. So those, I think, were two gaps that there's more we started to see in this Gallup and Clifton Strengths stuff. The more it felt like, this feels like something we should really try and explore and get into. Yeah. So you said that we went down to London, and so let's talk about our personal experience so far on the Clifton Strength, doing the assessment maybe, what that tells about our strengths, the London coaches stuff, and then we'll talk about the team stuff as well maybe. Yeah,
so first let's tell the story, I suppose, of just some of the things of my experience. So I actually took the test once on a particular email address and account, and I got certain results, and then we booked ourselves onto this course, and I couldn't figure out how to log back into that. And
Classic Ken.
And so because it was going to become a TaAF project, I retook it with my work email address, and and interestingly, the results were very similar. Same top 10 strengths, but in a slightly different order, and so that was really reassuring. But I remember when we were travelling down on the train to London, and probably the first time we'd really got our Clifton Strengths reports out. So once you've taken the assessment, it gives you a report that goes into some detail about each of your top 5 strengths and what that might look like and feel like for you in real life. And we were reading away and highlighting with our yellow highlighters, underlining, and sort of looking at each other like, well, that's some sort of magic.
It's a bit scarily accurate, this, I don't like it.
I can't remember many of the examples, but even, the things that, so I can remember one example. So one of my strengths is strategic, and that's about assessing options, coming up with different ways to do things, and being able to think about how you might get to the next stage or the next step in a variety of ways, and being able to quickly assess all of those different options. And it said in the report, be careful of a blind spot where you quickly flashing through ideas and options, and people then get lost as to which one you actually think is the right thing to do. And only the day before, I'd had a management meeting with our team at Les Trust where someone had actually stopped and been like, but just tell us what is it that you actually want us to do, because we've heard about 20
so we couldn't do any of those 20, but what is it, Ken, that we should do?
And so I think for both of us, welcome your thoughts, of course, as we read through just on the train on the way down, really started to think, that there might be something a bit more in this than we perhaps initially thought.
Yeah, and it was nice, wasn't it? We like I said, it was classic late homework prep on the way down on the train.
Early prep, like 5-10 in the morning.
But just kind of, you'd read something out from yours and I'd just smile knowingly, look at you and go, yep.
And I think it's that sense of, it really does connect with people personally, and what's interesting is everyone's report is different.
Yeah. Because we share, in our top 10, we share 3, 4, maybe quite a lot, I think, in our top 10.
In the top 10, yeah.
Yeah, and yet if you look at the breakdown of those, the word and the articulation of what that might mean for you, it's different for both of us.
Because of the interaction of the strengths, it's not a standalone, you've got strategic, and so here's the blurb about strategic, but it's much, much more nuanced than that, which gives it some of its power. And then we were on the course, we're with 40 other professionals from all different sectors, many of which sort of commercial, private sector background.
That felt massively out of place, if I'm honest.
Many of them working in learning and development and sort of professional coaches already. And so I think our 4 team members have done a lot of informal coaching in terms of management and support, and probably have a natural style of wanting to be coaching led rather than command and instruction led. But still, we were in a room where I think we felt a little out of our depth to start with.
Yeah. And I'll just I won't mean this quite in the way I say, but I'm quite a cynical chap when it comes to this type of stuff, which I think is a healthy thing to admit, because then there's something in that this has started to connect with me quite a lot now. And so for those first 1 or 2 days, because some people there have been living this, somebody would make a comment and somebody would laugh and they'd go, "Oh yeah, that's the activator in you," and the whole room would chuckle. And I'd sit there going, "Oh, I don't belong here.
I don't know what activator
I don't know what you mean. I don't like the fact that you all just chuckled about that." And it was only really, I think, day 2 or 3, and I was struggling to grasp seeing some of my strengths in me.
Yeah.
And then I just heard, I think I put my hand up and just said, "I'm struggling here to connect with my number one thing, which is input," which I won't go into right now. But then it took you to go, "Actually, Jamie, do you not do this? Do you not collect Stephen King books? Do you not constantly listen to podcasts all the time? And you're always sharing that back, and that thing you do on the team." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've not." And it was just that realisation of that then being turned into a strength that somebody else saw in me made me feel quite warm and tingling on the inside. Well, because what they're saying is, "I see that in you, and that's of value to other people, and that's great, mate." And that was a nice experience to have.
I think having a tool, we just don't do enough of this in our lives, our personal lives, our family lives, definitely not in our work lives, where we say to each other, "You're really good at this."
Yeah.
And this is really natural for you, and exactly what you said there, and we value it, and not where we value, "Oh, you've made 6 sales this month and you've made us £1 million." Not that, because there's a that's not real. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing sort of personal about that. But what we're talking about here is who you really are, those intrinsic qualities that make you you.
The stuff that you do without almost thinking.
Yeah.
That if you didn't do them would be missed.
Yeah.
And the team get a value from.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so maybe, because I'm a little bit mindful of time, and we could spend probably an hour on this too much. So there's that bit where we've started to really get behind this and feel a strong connection to it. And I'd encourage anybody, to kind of go and try this out for yourselves if you haven't, because once you start reading that stuff about yourselves and your colleagues, you start to really tap into it. So maybe I'll ask you to touch on the coach a bit quickly in a minute, but I think one thing we did is we've rolled this out to our TaAF teams and asked our TaAF teams to all take the assessment. And as you might expect, some were totally up for it, some were a little bit, "What's all this about?" Some might have thought this was some kind of way of catching out whether or not they were performing well or whatever it would be.
Yeah, and absolutely not a performance tool.
No, absolutely. And I think once everybody got it and started looking at the report, they started to feel differently about it.
Yeah.
And then we ran an away day last week, I think it was, and we spent the first half of the day just talking and sharing in pairs or trios to talk about the strengths. And then we asked the team at half time to just share some thoughts. And I've got the slider in front of me here. And it's just some beautiful stuff on there. From across the board, 20 responses. I find it difficult to appreciate and recognise the strengths that I have. But I've now got a new understanding of how beneficial it is to reflect on those and to hear them with others else. I think this feels like personal development. You know what I mean? We don't do much personal development in inverted commas in TaAF. But this is, because it's helping you realise what you're great at and finding the space for you to be, to build on that. It's giving me the confidence that it's okay not to have strengths in other areas, because I know the strengths that I do have are bringing something unique and really special. A great tool for self-reflection, and reassuring, enlightening. I'm loving it. Permission to focus on what you do best. It is almost that, isn't it? It's giving you license to go, absolutely. And I like this one as well. It's a great way to get to know each other better.
Yes.
And we've really started to connect as a team more because we've got a thing to immediately look at and go, oh, I do see that in you, and it's a really powerful thing when you do that. So that's where the team are kind of going with it so far.
Yeah. When you think about the objectives of TaAF, but more broadly our place development work and the local delivery pilots, and trying to change the system, we've talked about this lots before. When it comes down to relationships and people being braver, thinking differently, doing things differently, approaching things with different mindsets, surely understanding who you are and who the people you're working with is as a real value in that work.
Yeah. Do we think that's enough of the personal teamy journey? Yeah. Maybe we'll do a little break now and then talk about where we're going with it next.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. So, fun little mini activity. So we do these every podcast. So this is something, if you were talking about strengths with your team, irrespective of whether you've taken the Clifton Strengths test or not, just to have a conversation about what we're good at, this could be a good opening activity where I'm going to challenge Jamie to think about what might some of the natural talents and strengths be of some famous people.
Okay.
So if we're in a visual world here rather than audio one, you might have a picture. I'll put them up on your screen.
Maybe you could do a verbal impression of them.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I'm just deciding whether I could try, and no, I can't. That would be good though. I wish I was a bit. A bit. Well, go on. Perhaps some more self-assurance and internal confidence. That's a good idea. One of the strengths is called woo, which is like this.
Woo might be a good
party time. It's not me. You like karaoke though, so maybe you could do an impression. Number 1, Andy Murray. What strengths might Andy Murray have? Tennis player Andy Murray.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, don't really do sports.
Andy Murray. Well, so I know there's an obvious one that you see in him when he's on the court, and that's there's a strength that's called competition. And that's that, the desire to be in a space and competing and looking to compare yourself to others and succeeding against that.
He's got the raw and fist pump.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like, and it's the drive to constantly compare to others to improve, and always wanting to, like say, compete with yourself and with others. And I mean, to a degree, he's had to compete with his own body.
Yes.
In the recent years to get back to the level. And I mean, I know the Australian Open was recently. I know he won 1 or 2. I don't know what happened.
At least 2 games, and he played very well.
But to see that overcoming massive hip surgery, I seem to know quite a lot about Andy Murray, it turns out.
It's because you're high input.
Oh,
you've read.
There you go.
You've read and learned something somewhere, and you've remembered it.
Yeah, that brilliant, Ken. Well done, mate. You are an actual Clifton coach. That's really good. That.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay.
So that's the only one I could think of off the top of my head for him.
One that stands out to me, and of course we don't know what the assessment would show, but one of the things I love about Andy Murray is he would show a Clifton Strengths that's called consistency, which is not necessarily about doing the same things over and over again, but a yearning for consistency across people. It's almost a fairness and equity.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things I really like about Andy Murray is he talks quite often about women's tennis and the need for them to have higher profile and equal pay with the men and those sorts of things. And so consistency might be one of his. Celebrity number 2.
Okay.
Mr. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, eh? I'm disappointed you didn't do an impression of him.
What does a Donald Trump impression go like?
Find out on the next podcast. Well, there's one that leaps to mind for him, which actually is one that we share with him.
Yes.
So I don't know what that says about us. So there's one that's called self-assurance, and that's just that internal confidence, the confidence of your own convictions and the decisions that you make or the things that you're going to say, and feeling confident enough to deliver those in a way. So he seems to have an awful lot of self-assurance.
Yeah, and I'd say maybe significance as well. This desire to be recognised by others.
Yeah.
And to get the plaudits of people.
Yeah.
Because why else would you want to be a president or a prime minister?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a particularly fun job. I suppose there's that sense of I want to help the country to progress. Maybe I'm not sure how much we see in that in Donald Trump or not, but certainly you must have a desire to be in the public eye.
Yeah, well, and that feels the same for anybody who wants to lead anything, doesn't it? And it's funny because we know with the perceptions of Donald Trump, so wherever you stand with that, you would probably see the self-assurance as more of a but actually, why wouldn't you want a leader who's really strong in self-assurance and confidence to make decisions about where a place is going?
Yeah, I mean, you might also want like humility and care and thoughtfulness, but
nah. Okay, we're sticking at 2.
I think
Don't
2.
challenge me with any more, because I think I
2.
might start
So
exhausting myself.
that's a fun activity that you could do and stick some pictures up and just have a fun time reflecting on some controversial celebrities. Not that Andy Murray's controversial.
Or Donald Trump.
No,
for
of
that
course.
matter.
Yeah. Well, each to their own view.
Let's not. Political podcast season 3 coming up. Okay, so maybe we'll get into the second part now and just talk about what are we. Well, I think we've covered what we're doing with it, but maybe now, what do we want to achieve with it? Where are we going with this? So we're talking about how we've used it operationally. We really want our team and our expanding team to really have this at its core and to be recognised for their strengths and to have the opportunity to develop and grow their strengths and talents that they've got. But what about bigger picture for TaAF?
So one of the things that we are working on in our accelerator phase over the next couple of years is to support leadership development throughout our place in Pennine, not just within the TaAF teams, but beyond, whether that's councils, NHS settings, community settings, charity, third sector, and everything in between. And so we're planning to do quite a lot of leadership work where strengths will be at the centre. So that might be might be allowing lots of leaders to take the strengths-based test and providing them with some one-to-one coaching for them to understand it and implement it into their leadership and into their lives. It might look like taking groups or cohorts of leaders and doing some more in-depth, deeper work around what strengths could do and how they might then roll that on and perpetuate it within their own teams, potentially colleagues becoming certified strengths coaches so that they can do more one-to-one coaching. And the overall purpose of all of that is again going back to this: if behaviours and leadership are at the centre of change, then supporting people to be more self-aware, focusing on the strengths so that they can be more effective and more productive in their leadership is going to accelerate the work. And what's interesting, I think, when we talk about leadership, we're not necessarily talking about CEOs of councils or directors or even managers. But everyone has influence. Yeah. Everyone has an ability to lead. If they understood what their strengths were and could lead with their strengths, everyone's got leadership within them. And so how do we identify leaders who are passionate about physical activity, about sport, about community, about Pennine, Lancashire, and then how do we equip them with the tools and the confidence and the platform potentially and the permission to make things better? Yeah,
as soon as you start to see you can lead, there's a strength called command. So you can lead and have a strength called command, which sounds natural. There's a strength that's called connectedness. You can lead by understanding how to bring people together, united around something. You know, there's a strength that's harmony. You can lead by trying to bring people with disparate backgrounds and visions and maybe even contradictory views together into a space to do something. You can lead in lots of ways.
And there's another example is a strength called analytical, which is about being able to understand and assess information and data and then translate that into powerful stories that can influence and lead change. And that might only be by presenting information to someone like you who's a strong communicator to say, look, here's the weaponry, the arsenal.
Go and land that at people in a way that connects them and lifts them up out of the seats.
And that's really influential and leadership as well. So everyone has the power to lead and everyone has strengths to lead with. We want to help people to identify those and to empower them to know how to use them to lead effectively.
And what feels nice, I think. So firstly, watch this space. Do you know what I mean? Because I know that's something we're getting into the planning of now, working out what that will look like. And if you're connected with TaAF in any way or in this area, keep an eye out for that, because that might be something, an opportunity you might want to tap into at the right point in time.
Well, if you're really excited, get in touch right now.
Boom.
And let's see if we can do some.
Ken Masters 07. What is it? but just kind of quickly. I mean, it's our podcast. We can take as long as we want, but we try and keep to a time, don't we? What I kind of like about that, and obviously we would because it's the thing that we're kind of believing in. I've seen quite a few leadership programs, and there are already some, and they're focused on different types of approaches and stuff, and that's great. But what I love is that this feels like something you'd want to be part of. It feels like an exciting thing. Let's talk about your innate strengths and qualities and talents as a person, and use that going forwards to create the amazing leaders of the future, or to even develop the leaders that you are now into even stronger leaders. Something feels innately more exciting and interesting than the kind of standard, let's talk about the skills that leaders need to have, and the kind of stuff that I've seen before in the NHS leadership development programs, for example.
Yeah, And I think if we can, this is going to be where are we clever enough will be the question.
Well, the answer's no, but let's see what you say.
Can we take some of that, all of that strength stuff, because lots of people do Gallup's Clifton Strengths coaching, right, and development around the strengths. But can we take that, and I've been saying this word a lot recently, and placify it? Can we use all of those tools, but make it have real context and power within this sense of place leadership, place development, systems change? That's going to be a really exciting challenge for us.
Yeah, the practical application of everything is the thing that ultimately proves it's worth or not, isn't
Absolutely.
it? Great point. Okay, do we feel like that's covered as much as we need to, knowing there's going to be future stuff talking about it, and maybe who knows if season 3 spoiler coming up, there's potentially a topic there that we might bring a guest into at some point to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm confident we've covered. Best podcast ever.
Best, bold, but I think we say that every time. One of them must be true. Well, not best podcast ever, the best one we've
Maybe that's my self-assurance flowing through there. And
see how good he is, folks. He brings it back to the strengths
and
every time.
futuristic. Always looking forward to the next one.
Amazing. All right, wind it in now. So maybe we always try and suggest a couple of things that you might want to do. This one's a bit different because really the things we might direct you to seem quite obvious. So maybe Ken, you share one first of what people could do.
Yeah, so simple Google Clifton Strengths or Gallup. You can go on their website, learn more. There's just endless resources about it. There is a cost to take the Clifton Strengths assessment, but certainly you can learn more there and consider whether that's something that might be useful for you in your work.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to this one. I might merge a couple of points here. I think you've already alluded to this. Even if you've not done the Clifton Strengths, actually, you could still take some time for yourself to think about the stuff that you're innately strong at, and actually how much of my working week am I doing the stuff that gives me energy, that I know I'm naturally good at. And again, why not just in one of your future team sessions? Set aside half an hour to just talk about the strengths that we see in each other naturally, and let's just talk about that and celebrate what we've got in this team that's unique. Whether you've done Clifton Strengths or not, you know the talents that you can see in each other, and it's just a beautiful experience to do that together as a team. It's really bonding and strengthening. Okay, so a little different to our usual one, as in it's a little bit early days for us on this one, but it's promising, it's exciting, and it's potentially going to be something really big going forwards for us. And so that's it. We are going to do maybe one more podcast in this season. Yeah. We make it sound like professionals when we talk about seasons and wrap-ups. Season 2,
episode last one.
Episode last one. Because I think we've wanted this season to almost cover the fundamentals, the stuff that's at the heart of our approach. Yeah, and I think we've done that amazingly well, as you've said. So look out for the podcast coming next. So anyway, thank you as always for listening. If you've enjoyed it, please share it with people, let them know about it, share them a link on WhatsApp, make it nice and easy for them to just click and listen. There's quite a lot of season 1 and there's about 6 or 7 in season 2 now. We're getting a bit of a back catalogue. It's quite impressive. It's kind of up there with Joe Rogan, I believe.
Well, I think Mr. Beast has 130 million subscribers on YouTube, and we're only a couple behind. So subscribe on YouTube as well, if you'd like to.
Brilliant. Thank you for listening as always, guys. Catch you later. Bye-bye.